Okay, good morning, everybody. We are streaming live from the Penguin Random House headquarters on Broadway, in New York City, just below Columbus Circle. My name is John Pitts. I'm the marketing director for Doubleday, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. And we have been honored all these years to publish the works of Dr. Michio Kaku, who's here today to answer your questions. Over the years, we've published a number of his works: Hyperspace, Physics of the Impossible, Physics of the Future, most recently, The Future of the Mind. And today, on sale in North America, anyway, we are publishing The Future of the Mind.
So, Future of Humanity.
The Future of Humanity, excuse me. I'm looking at the back of the book. My apologies. Anyway, it's on sale today here in North America. Dr. Kaku will be making appearances. He appeared at the Barnes & Noble on the Upper West Side last night. He'll be in Boston tomorrow and on from there. And the rest of his tour you can find here on his Facebook page. So, without further ado, we have a bunch of questions already piling up, and I hope to see your questions in the Facebook feed. So let's get started. So the first question, Dr. Kaku, that many fans ask when they see the title of the book is, what future will humanity enjoy if it can't stop ruining the Earth? And will we ever be able to positively control the climate with technology?
Well, you have to realize that our time on the Earth is limited. On one hand, we have potential natural disasters like asteroid impacts and supervolcanoes, gigantic ice ages, but also self-inflicted crises as well, including global warming. Global warming is not a fiction, it is real. We see it with our satellites. Every glacier on the planet Earth is receding. Summer times is about a week longer than normal. And Antarctica, the South Pole, is beginning to crack. And so we're beginning to see signs of this, and that's why I think we should do two things. First of all, on the Earth, it is a political question. That is, we have to galvanize people to be alert to the fact that, yes, there are three dangers facing humanity that are self-inflicted. First, global warming. Second, nuclear proliferation. And three, the potential for germ warfare. These are political questions that we should resolve on the planet Earth. Now, some people say maybe we should escape to Mars and the other planets because of these problems. I don't agree. I think these are Earth problems that we have to solve on the planet Earth. Now, as far as Mars is concerned, I think we need an insurance policy. I once spoke to Carl Sagan, the famous astronomer, and he said that the Earth is in danger. We know that inevitably life will be extinct on the Earth. 5 billion years from now, for example, the sun is going to eat up the Earth. Therefore, he said, we need an escape plan. We need plan B, just in case there's a problem. And so he said that that's the reason why we should become a two-planet species. Now we have Silicon Valley billionaires echoing the same words. Elon Musk of SpaceX has opened up his checkbook to sponsor a moon rocket of his own, a personal moon rocket called the Falcon Heavy, which successfully launched just 3 weeks ago. He wants to become at the forefront of a multi-planet species. And so to sum up, I think that Earth-like problems that we humans have created on the Earth, we have to solve on the Earth. We can't escape into outer space, and that's a political question. But as an insurance policy for the long term, we need Plan B. And that's why we should think about the space program. Because after all, the dinosaurs did not have a space program. And that's why the dinosaurs aren't here today to talk about it.
Okay, very interesting. Here's a question then, moving on to Mars, from Wayne Cope, who asks, when do you think we'll establish a colony on Mars?
Well, NASA was criticized for being the agency to nowhere for 50 years. We simply spun wheels around the Earth. Now, NASA has given us a blueprint and a timetable. So NASA is now focused on the moon and then to Mars, not to mention the fact that Elon Musk of SpaceX has his own timetable. That timetable is in December of 2019, next year, NASA is going to fire up the SLS booster rocket with the Orion capsule, and circle the moon with an unmanned mission. 2023, We're going to put astronauts inside the Orion capsule, and they will circulate around the moon as well. Simultaneously, Elon Musk of SpaceX, with his private funds, is going to fire up the Falcon Heavy with the Dragon space capsule, and he too is thinking about a trial run around the moon. Then NASA, around 2026, has stated that they want to create a space station, a lunar space station similar to the space station we have orbiting the planet Earth. That's around 2026. And then, finally, the main event. We're going to go to Mars, perhaps sometime after 2030. Now, as far as a settlement is concerned, that's going to be decades even beyond that. Elon Musk has stated that he wants to have his rockets send passengers and settlers to Mars at about 1,000 settlers per shot, ultimately reaching about 1 million people. Now, let's be real. This is not going to happen anytime soon, but perhaps by the end of the century, we could definitely talk about settlements on Mars.
Okay, great. Now that we have lots of international people asking questions, and excuse me if I don't get the names quite right, but here goes. Malachi Norris asks, if we colonize a planet such as Mars, will there be nations?
Well, there will be nations on the planet Earth because nations are a political question. Somebody has to have taxes. Somebody has to have a police force. Somebody has to have a national consensus as to what to do about these problems. So we're going to have nations on the planet Earth. However, I think nations are going to become weaker and weaker as time goes by because we're headed for what I call a Type 1 civilization. I'm a physicist, and we believe that in outer space you can rank civilizations by energy. A Type 1 civilization is planetary. They control the weather. They control volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. Type 1. Type 2 is stellar. They control the energy output of a star, like Star Trek. The Federation of Planets will be a typical Type 2 civilization. And then there's Type 3, which is galactic, like Star Wars. They roam the galactic space lanes. Now, what are we? We are Type 0. We live in a world of fragmented nations that war with each other. We have fundamentalists, we have sectarians, we have nationalists. However, we can see the beginnings of this new society on the planet Earth. Perhaps by the year 2100, we physicists do the calculation, and we say that beginning 2100, we will become a Type 1 planetary civilization, where nations will still exist, but they're going to be weaker than they are today. For example, the Internet. What is the Internet? The Internet is the beginning of a Type 1 telephone system. We are privileged to be alive to witness the birth of the first Type 1 technology, the Internet. What language will they speak? Well, on the Internet, the number 1 and number 2 languages on the Internet are English and Mandarin Chinese. What about sports? Well, we have the Olympics. We have soccer and football. What about music? We have youth culture, rock and roll and rap. What about high fashion? We have Chanel and Gucci. The point here is that we can see the beginnings of a new Type 1 society. Now, once we have a settlement on Mars, I don't think we're going to have gigantic nations warring with each other anytime soon. First, we have to start with a small group of settlers on Mars. They're going to have to build, for example, use lava tubes initially for shelter on Mars. Lava tubes are naturally formed by volcanic activity. You can shield yourself from radiation with a lava tube. Then after that, mining operations will take place. We're going to mine the ice. Ice can be melted for fresh water. You can extract out oxygen for breathing and hydrogen for fuel. And then third, agriculture. We're talking about genetically modifying plants to thrive in the cold Martian conditions. And then perhaps we'll have 1 million people. That's the goal that Elon Musk foresees. But again, 1 million people is not a nation.
Okay, Matt Hare asks, our genetic makeup evolved on this planet Earth. Will we have to alter our genes to survive on other planets?
That's an excellent question because the human body is frail. We don't live very long. We're not very strong. But to survive in outer space, we may have to, at a certain point, not anytime soon, foresee the time when we may have to genetically modify ourselves. For example, on different planets, you may have different gravities. Gravities weaker, stronger than that we found on the planet Earth. We may have to adjust to that. Also oxygen content. It may be possible to genetically modify ourselves to breathe air that has a different oxygen-nitrogen ratio, for example. And so this is not for us anytime soon. No one is saying that anytime soon we're going to genetically modify ourselves. But as time goes by, as we become a multi-planet species, as we go out past the solar system, among the stars, among extrasolar planets, this of course could be centuries into the future, then we do have to entertain the possibility that we may have to genetically modify ourselves. However, there is another possibility as well, and that is mechanical avatars. If, for example, on the moon or on Venus or other hostile environments, we have a robot that can survive on Venus or the moon or hostile environments, and we can upload our consciousness into the avatar, then we, quote, we, may be able to thrive and survive in hostile environments without having to genetically modify ourselves. Now, we can't do that yet, but I think by the end of the century, we may have the capability of contemplating uploading our consciousness into a mechanical avatar.
Okay. Abhishek Gupta asks, how will humans travel the great distance between habitable planets and beyond without spending their entire lives in transit?
Well, let's be real about this. The universe is huge, gigantic. It took 3 days to go to the moon. You could leave on Monday and come back on Friday from the moon. Now, Mars is much farther away. It takes 9 months to go to Mars, 9 months to come back, and then you have to wait several months for the alignment of the planets to be right. So about a 2-year mission to Mars. So a mission to the stars is going to have a different set of physical constraints. An ordinary rocket would take about 70,000 years using a chemical engine to reach the stars. That's prohibitively long. No one is talking about freezing yourself for 70,000 years. Therefore, we need a new propulsion system. In the next century, NASA has already, by the way, plotted out the 100-year Starship for the next century. They've looked at several designs: fusion rockets, antimatter rockets, and ramjet fusion engines. These are the top 3 engines that could take us perhaps up to half the speed of light. But even then, a trip to Alpha Centauri would take 8 years, traveling at half the speed of light. Therefore, for the short term, we may have to, well, one is suspended animation. The suspended animation is not developed enough yet so that we can freeze ourselves and unfreeze ourselves years later. Let me repeat that. Some people have already willed their body to organizations that will freeze their body so they can be unfrozen years later when we cure cancer, cure diseases like that. I don't think we can do that yet. I think these people are wasting their money. You cannot freeze the human body, revive it.